All right, everyone. Welcome to this daily Sidereal Astrology forecast for Monday, May 29th, 2017. All right, so we are still very much in the early phases of this lunar cycle. Just had a new moon last Thursday. So a very good time for slowly but surely cultivating some new things in our life. If you did find that there were some new insights or quite literally some new things since last weekend, it is a great early part of the week to start to implement some of these things. Be flexible, be adaptive. Things are still early with it, but I think with that willingness to adapt and see what new is shaping up and then put energy into what is starting to sprout, I think is fantastic at this time. So the moon is in Cancer here today. We could be feeling quite reflective, perhaps, wanting to connect to maybe some of our sentiments, maybe at home with family, things like that. Really good for that protective energy as well. You know, the crab, so protecting those we're close to, spending time with those we're close to, and maybe at home and having a bit of privacy as well. So that's the emotional body, but of course we do have the sun still in Taurus, which was this whole new beginning since last week about our resourcefulness. So we're likely still focused on the resourceful aspects of things, of ourself, both cultivating our inner resources, such as our self-reliance, our self-worth, and also our external resources, maybe materially, or our values. So all this is moving forward, but today we do have Mars opposite up to Saturn exact from yesterday, from Sunday. So we could be feeling a bit of this needing of patience, right? We have Mars, the side of ourself that wants things now, opposite up to Saturn, the side of ourself that wants things later. And so it is about synergy here. And I think taking things one step at a time, really seeing the big picture in your life in terms of the things you do want, I think could be very helpful. All right, so let's go and look at this in more detail when we return. All right, so let's have a look here at the placements. Moon in Cancer, all day here today, very well set in Cancer. The moon's natural sign, actually, so it's normal for our feelings to want to have a bit of this emotional time, feeling time, protective time, reflective, maybe reflecting on the past, you know, this kind of thing. And it's all good to connect to our soul, essentially. Listen to our soul, listen to our bodies as well, and our intuition, and all of this sort of watery protective energy, which is the soft stuff within us, right? You know, Cancer is the crab. And of course, we do have to protect ourselves with the outer layer, with the shell. But it is a good time to have that protective energy, but also get into the soft stuff, you know, the past, the feelings, the emotional, that kind of thing. So that's the moon, and the sun is, of course, in Taurus along with Mars. Mars is going to be finishing up Taurus this week, in fact, shifting into Gemini over the weekend. But yeah, this whole cycle is about the resourceful aspects of ourselves. Cultivating that. It's still the very early phases of this lunar cycle. So being flexible with the new things that maybe you are cultivating with your inner or outer resources at the moment. And that's giving us energy, right, with the sun. Focusing on our values, focusing on the simple life, being grateful for things in our life, is where the energy is coming in. So, so along with that, Mercury is, of course, in Aries, and so we still have a very direct way of perhaps communicating things, maybe thinking about things. Maybe our minds are very active collectively. So it does make it really good for planning, especially about your goals, anything that does require a bit of mental aptitude, communication. Mercury is very empowered here in Aries. So those sort of mercurial things have a bit of fire behind them, and anything you do want to channel with that is still excellent here today. So looking at the transits, as you can see here, Mars opposite up to Saturn is the most important thing we've got going on. Certainly important to slow-moving planets, and this has been going on since yesterday. So if you have been feeling since Sunday, maybe a bit of this throttling energy, right? Because usually we're on the side of the more personal planet, in this case Mars. We're wanting things, we have our goals, we're ready to storm through the gates. But Saturn is here opposing up to that and is saying, wait a minute, you know, we have to make sure that we're doing this in a grounded way. We're seeing the big picture. We're taking, you know, this responsible approach. And so it is about balancing the two, not just ignoring the side of ourselves that wants to get things done and only being responsible, and at the same time, not only just, you know, storming forward without the responsibility. So balance is the key here. And I think if you are willing to take steps, but be patient and see the big picture, I think that's a fantastic way of working with this. So we could be feeling this way and a bit throttled, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but that's okay. We're building. It's all part of a much larger picture here. In fact, this did start from early in 2016. That at that time, if you did feel like there were some things that you were motivated towards, but you knew was going to take some time, and you know, it was going to take some effort and some patience. Now we're at the halfway point with this, since 2016 with this Mars transit. And so it does make it a really good day for doing this status check. You know, examining your overall life in the sense of what are your short-term goals, what are your long-term goals. And you'll likely notice some things have come to fruition since then, but also some things have not yet. And so we're at the halfway point where between now and the next year and a quarter, so about the middle to later part of 2018, is going to be the last part of this cycle, of this transit with Mars and Saturn. So we can certainly between now and then continue to cultivate these things, be patient towards these things, and just take it one step at a time, seeing that bigger picture. All right, so very important there. That's going to be strong all day, but I do feel like as we go through the day, there is an understanding about this. There is a shift with this in our life, and I think we are willing to, after this, as the day unfolds, take that constructive approach. All right, so looking at the lunar aspects on a minor note, the moon is going to be squaring up to this Venus-Uranus conjunction we're going to have later in the week. This is very early, but yeah, in the earlier part of the day, you may feel a bit restless. There might be a bit of anxiety, perhaps, or it's hard to relax, or, you know, just kind of get into that Cancer energy, the feelings and whatnot. So things you can do to, I think, mix some things up, like be willing to, you know, try some new things in your routine, or, you know, see a different perspective of something, because the square to Uranus does mean that, you know, Uranus is trying to show us that there's this freedom we do want, and there is some changes that perhaps we do want, maybe in the routine. So listening to that in healthy ways while remaining anchored in our feelings, remaining anchored in ourselves. And I think that's a good constructive way of working with that. There could be some healing here today. The moon trining up to Chiron could be actually very supportive for healing, feeling a bit rejuvenated. And as we go into tomorrow, this whole Mars, as it starts to ease up, we also do start to see this sort of inspiration, perhaps. Mars sextiles up to Uranus. It's not a major aspect, but it's certainly important because it's involving, again, 2 slow-moving planets. So we'll probably feel this more so tomorrow, but the second half of the day, if you start to feel a bit inspired, a bit excited, maybe it is that you're wanting to make some changes, mix some things up. Maybe you're feeling a bit confident, a bit motivated to do something new and different that's outside of the box. Or maybe you have some new and different ideas, which is Uranus. You know, Uranus is very intuitive, very progressive. Listening to that, and if, you know, a sort of door does present itself, which I think will be more so tomorrow, but if you do see this sort of door, maybe consider walking through that, trying the new thing, the different thing, see how it goes. Again, we're in the early phases of this lunar cycle, so it is really good for experimentation and trying new things. All right, so that's the day in a nutshell. I would say certainly Mars opposite Saturn is the strongest. Balance here is key. Balancing the short term and the long term. Doing the status check, seeing where we can continue to you know, cultivate the things we want in life, but with patience, right? Maybe a bit of irritability, something needs to change a little bit with the routine or something like that with moon square up to Uranus. It's good not to be too rash with it, but maybe listen to where we can have a bit of change with the routine, or just mix things up a little bit. So maybe feeling like we want that. Some healing taking place, and then as we go into tomorrow, this sort of fresh, new, exciting, perhaps, or just different perspective on our goals, on our drives, on the things we want, and maybe putting energy into that can be quite motivating and driving. All right, so yeah, that's the aspects, but the moon in Cancer, I think generally here today to really connect to the emotional side of things, listening to our intuition, listening to inner guidance, and maybe reflecting on things a little bit. All right, so have a fantastic day, everyone. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.